So I'd like to move to discussing, a little bit about the ideas. How do you, what do you do differently for a medium or a large scale channel? So I'd love to get some of your ideas and thoughts and maybe share with the audience how you've done that in the past.
Yeah, great question, by the way. And I think the fundamentals are the same. You heard from AJ and you heard from Natalia about putting in the infrastructure, being patient, making sure that you understand the profitability model of the partner, what you're trying to drive, those kinds of things. So I think the fundamentals are the same. The scale changes though, and so the tools and the infrastructure become a little bit more important. The other thing that I think is important as you grow, and I think AJ touched upon this a little bit, is that alignment to your sales strategy and your sales and field teams. That's super important. So, I think about it as sort of the sales cycle, right? What are the different sales stages as you go through selling something? And it could be as simple as how do you get leads? How do you do the discovery process? How do you do a demo? How to do a proof of concept, how do you take it across the finish line, right? And so if you think about it that way of how do you align to your sales team, how do you make sure that there's no conflict there? How do you make sure that the partners tied to those same sales stages? That becomes very important as you grow and as you scale, because that's when you get more and more conflict. And so, having a portal like I think AJ and both Natalia were talking about, right? Is important because that's something that you could put governance around and make it easy for the partner to come in and engage with you on. I think some other examples I think are if you go through the sales cycle, for a demo, are you going to be able to provide NFR licenses, right, to them? Is it free, by the way, right? What's your policy around that? How do you drive brand awareness with the partner as you go out internationally, globally, within market, etc.? So therefore, how do you effectively use market development funds in that case to drive brand awareness, campaigns, leads, events, blogs, thought leadership with your partners? Those kinds of things are, I think, very important. I think both Natalia and AJ also touched upon rebates. And that's sort of the second piece of what I'll call the economics of the program. Is the front end is the discounts that you provide to your partners based upon maybe tiers, but then the back end rebates are also equally important for the partner themselves as a P&L. It really drives profitability for them, but you can align those to things that you care about, right? And so, do you care about new logos? Do you care about growth? Do you care about source business? Is the partner actually bringing in source business and bringing in net new pipelines? That behavior that you want to drive. So I think all of those things come into play. So make sure that you're working with your finance team, and build a rebate budget, build an MDF budget to be able to use effectively with partners as they scale and as you want to scale within market, and make sure that those incentives that you give to your partners are aligned with how you pay your salespeople, right? So if they're paid on something else and partners are paid on something else, there could be conflict right there, right? So if you want to get new logos and you're paying your reps on that, make sure you pay your partners on that too. So those kinds of things. And then I think the dashboard. You can't manage something unless you measure something, right? And so being able to effectively have a handful of KPIs. I put together a P&L, right, for our company and for the CFO on the partner business, right, and some KPIs around it, and how profitable the business is for us, right? And that's the only way you can do that is to have some type of measurement and a dashboard and KPIs and metrics and things like that. So those are some of the things that fundamentals aren't really too different from where you start, but they certainly have to scale and be very much aligned as you go forward, or else you're going to create conflict. All right, back to you.
Yeah, no, that's great, Balaji. I think, for me, I hear every day about we want to influence channel behavior. People talk about it a lot, but it's not as easy, it's easier said than done, as the saying goes. But I think you've called out, I'd like to just hone in at a couple of great points there around the difference between the front end and the back end, as you described it. So how do you incentivize partners to create that awareness to drive the lead generation out there at the front end? And then how do you make them more profitable by leveraging those rebates at the back end? And I know I've seen it kind of directly with some companies being very clever about, using technology to stack their rebates for things like net new logos, or, the classic now is we're moving some of our core products to the cloud. We want to move to the SaaS or monthly recurring revenue model. How can I pay out more on that than I do on let's say, the on-premise or the standard product? That's very important to, the executives and ultimately the people that own the company, because that's what dictates profitability, right through both for the vendor, but indeed for the partner as well. And that's what drives valuations. I've even heard more recently people kind of selling the story to the partners, not just on the profitability of the program, but also the profitability of their company. The more you sell of the monthly recurring revenue model, the more valuable you as a partner company comes as well. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I hadn't kind of heard that until the last few months. People are actually starting to build that into their programs. And you mentioned there again, Balaji, behaviors. Other ones I've seen that have become very important when you do move into the SaaS world are things like, customer adoption and customer success managers. And we see more and more companies employing that type of skill set to drive the adoption, because it's one thing winning a piece of business, it's another thing having the end customer use it and then renewing it, which becomes equally important as a revenue stream.